Hey everybody, welcome to Uncanny Derek Comics, and today this video is going to be about my top 25 favorite Golden Age covers. These are all grails. I don't know if I'll ever own any of these books, but I'm going to share them anyway. Here we go. And as always, please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. If you have any comments, by all means, please leave them down below, and I'll definitely try to address them. So to preface this video, I love horror comic books. I love horror. I just like everything that's spooky. So the majority of this list is going to be horror based. There's going to be a few curveballs that I'm definitely going to throw at you guys. But for the most part, I just love the art. There's really not anything that's specific about this list that all these books are just something that I really enjoy. The artwork, the stories behind some of them. Some of them I don't care for the stories, but the book, the implication of what the books have done, all that jazz, the history of it all, that's my big excitement and my big draw to a lot of these books. So you don't have to ever have a reason to like comic books. So please know that when you're out there collecting. There's no rhyme or reason to what you have to like. You don't have to prove anything to anybody. So without further ado, here's my list. What I'm going to do is just shrink my screen down a little bit so we can give you the full picture of the book. I do have the picture of the book over on my other monitor here, so I'm going to look at that a little bit to talk about them. So my first book here is going to be Captain America Comics number 74. Now this is a comic book back. It's a Marvel book before Marvel was Marvel. It's from 1949. It's from Timely Comics. The cover is by Martin Nodell, and this is that awesome Red Skull cover. It's iconic. It's Captain America's Weird Tales. That is when they took the Captain America comics and they were kind of turning them into a little bit of a horror arc, and they ended up ending the series after a couple issues here. But this one is such a cool cover. You have the Red Skull there with these huge protruding arms going after Cap, and the lady there on the cover in the red dress, she's falling to her death, presumably, and Cap just looks like he's completely screwed by the Red Skull. I just think it's such a cool cover and completely out of the ordinary from anything else that you usually see from, well, not just Timely Comics at the time, but just from a Captain America superhero book. And so to see something like this is just, wow, lots of excitement from it. Again, if I could find a good quality copy of that book, that would be wonderful. I would love to see it in person. I've never seen it in person, but I imagine the Reds will be super deep on that, or at least a high grade copy of it. Just a really awesome cover. My next book here is actually one that many of you guys, I'm sure, know about. It's an iconic horror book. You're getting a lot of the iconic ones out of the way real early. This is Crime Suspense Stories number 22. This is the classic decapitation cover. This is the one that was, known for creating the Code of Authority, or at least being like one of the big reasons why this thing was made, because this was sold to children on bookshelves back in the 50s. This book is from EC, published in 1954. It is a Johnny Craig cover. I love Johnny Craig covers. This is, I mean, what more can you say about this book? It is one thing I liked about Johnny Craig, or about most of his artwork, and I do believe I have a couple other Craig covers that I still show you still, is that his artwork it always showed the before or the after the action. It never actually did the horror itself. He always did beautiful horror. And I think this cover really does encapsulate everything that is Johnny Craig. I mean, you know that her head got cut off. Her eyes are rolled in the back of her head. There's a little bit of drool or blood coming out from her mouth. It's wild. And this is a crazy book that, again, was sold to children and created the comic Code of Authority, and that ended up just, ruining the horror books altogether. Again, this book wasn't the book to do it, but it was books like these that certainly caused some problems. And it's such an awesome cover, and this is actually for sure on my, like, if I could find this book, I will grab it. for a reasonable price, of course. I'm not gonna like anything CGC 8.0. No, I'm not gonna touch that. Next one is a bit of an unusual one. This is probably the most unusual one on my list, and this is one of those ones that I like just because of the history behind it. It's An Earthman of Venus #1 by Avon, published in 1951. The cover is by Gene Fawcett, and the interiors are all done by Wally Wood. It's an adaptation of Ralph Milne Farley's sci-fi novel, The Radio Man, and I just think it's such a great cover. I always confuse it for a Wally Wood cover because of the alien lady on the front there. We all know how great Wally Wood was on making those women-looking covers. But the whole idea of this strange wasp lady being captured by this ant, and then the one man there trying to do something about it. It's just such an unusual, weird cover. And for the early 50s, books like this were certainly not common, and let alone ones that looked this good. There's not much I can say about this cover outside it's just really cool. So moving on to my next one, we have the iconic Chamber of Chills #19 by Harvey, published in 1953. This is a Lee Elias cover. I have a few other Lee Elias covers that I'm sure a lot of you horror fans are already like, yeah, I know which ones are on there, which, yeah, you're probably right. This cover is classic. It is so well done. It is. There's so much to say about this cover. The fact that it's cleverly drawn just right off the bat. You have this glass in front of the lady's face showing off her skull, like she's going to die. I don't know. Is she's smoking the cigarette? Like, is she not aware of who she's with? Obviously, there's a skull in the hand. There's a lot of intrigue in the cover. It's just so cool. And this is a book that really became popular too. The band The Misfits, they used this cover on an EP called Die, Die, My Darling. And that really made this whole book take off. Not that it already wasn't a great book to take off, but this is just such a really iconic, beautiful cover, and something should be framed up on a wall. Yeah, so my next book here is going to be Astonishing #30, and this is by Atlas. So this is also Marvel. So for those who are not aware, Timely turned into Atlas, turned into Marvel. It's all done by the same company, but they've had a few name changes. And in the 50s, this book is from 1954. They did do a few horror books, and Astonishing was one of them. And this is one of the, definitely, I'd say, the goriest Atlas book. I could be mistaken, but I feel like this is the goriest one. And it's really, all things considered, it's not that gory. But this cover is just so weird and awesome, and the laser eyes melting this man in the cemetery is just so wicked cool. This is a Joe Maneely cover, and Maneely has always done some pretty awesome artwork with Atlas and Marvel in the years, and I just find that his the reactions that he's given from both the guy getting his arms disintegrated and the lady witnessing that is just so awesome and truly encapsulates the horror that they're trying to convey. It is so cool. And again, I don't really have a real reason why I like this book. It just looks great. So next up is another Avon book. This is from 1952. It is City of the Living Dead. This is the only issue. There's no numbers associated with it. This is before Night of the Living Dead, and definitely before the movie City of the Living Dead, which was from the 80s. Night of the Living Dead was 1968. And this cover I have just always found very fascinating because it's obviously this zombie creature attached to the wall, and there's this woman there who looks like she's either dodging it or she's enslaved it. I'm not really sure. There's a lot of intrigue in the cover itself. But one thing that always stuck out with me is that it has this awesome purple background with these bright yellow letterings. And that's not a common thing to find in comic books, let alone horror books, those kind of bright, vibrant colors like that. So this book always stood out for me. And this is an A.Z. Hollingsworth cover. So he has done a handful of covers for Avon, but the color of this is just so unique on its own that it makes, and of course it's very zombie-esque, which I love. So this book has definitely made my list. Next up is not necessarily a horror book, but it is a really violent cover anyway. It's Crime Does Not Pay number 42 by Lev Gleason. This was published in 1945. This is a Charles Bureau cover, and this is just so violent. Again, you have this man getting shot up and also in the electric chair. Was he doomed to be thrown into the electric chair? Was he somebody who knew someone being thrown into an electric chair? It's really suggestive, and I'm not really sure what it's trying to tell without being able to read the story itself. But I just find the cover is so jarring, and is definitely one of the more violent covers for that series. And also, it just happens to just be very bright. Again, with the yellow, like the yellow lettering in the City of the Living Dead, this is a very bright book for what it's actually trying to show off, the suggestive violence there. This is definitely on my pickup list just because it's so cool looking. But again, no real reason to have to want a book. You can just get it for the artwork, and this is definitely some of that really awesome artwork I love. So next up, we get a little bit into, I have a trio of romance books, and two of them you can probably figure out what they're going to be, because they're going to be Matt Baker books, and one of them's not. So first up is Seven Seas Comics, and this is Seven Seas Comics number 4. This is printed by Universal Phoenix Feature from 1947. This is, classic Matt Baker here. This is your classic good girl art. A recent one, I think it was CGC 5.5, sold for nearly $20,000. This is just so cool to see the lady there with a dagger. She's fighting that shark. What else could be said about this book? This is just so cool. And of course, Matt Baker draws his ladies very well. And you'll see with my next one here, he draws them very, very well. And that cover is going to be, or the book is going to be Teenage Romance number 32. This is published in 1953 by St. John Publication. This is another classic good girl art from Matt Baker. It's that face on the lady. And if you look back to his Phantom Lady number 17, which I'll probably throw up on the screen here, you'll see that, and that Phantom Lady's from the 40s. Matt Baker has a look. And that look that he has, it goes all over. Like, even the Seven Seas lady we just saw, that was really much the same type of woman. And so this is one that recently sold for a couple grand, actually, a lower grade copy of it. And it's funny that these are all supposed to be teenagers in this cover, but much like all the 90210s or One Tree Hills, older people are acting as teenagers, and that's definitely in the case with this book. It's just a really cool looking cover, and I think he just draws people very well. And of course, he has a good girl art on there too. I'm not big on good girl art, but there's some accents and faces that he does, and I find this book is like spot on, like just gorgeous Matt Baker stuff. And lastly, this book is by Jack Kirby and Joe Simon. It is not any Captain America book. You guess it, it is Young Romance number 1. Young Romance number 1 is the first romance book. And why on earth am I interested in the first romance book? Well, believe it or not, this was published in 1947 by Prize, I believe was the publisher for it. And the reason why I like this book, not just because of what it did spawn, but I actually first recognized this book looking through a book on Golden Age books, and I came across the cover, and I realized I'd seen it before, and I saw it from this cover here, Chasing Amy, and I realized that I saw that movie so much when I was in high school, and I just recognized that cover recognized Young Romance from the Chasing Amy book. So I was like, holy geez, that's the same thing. What an homage. So my next book here is another Lee Elias cover that a lot of you will probably recognize. It is a Black Cat Mystery number 50 by Harvey in 1954. and this is such a great cover. It is probably probably the goriest cover I have on this list. It is quintessential horror. The radium the guys grab, like, I mean, you could go into great detail about everything going on that man's face. It's a train wreck. It's a glorious train wreck. I love it. This book is so. This is the book that everybody goes after when it comes to being a horror book. Like, this is there's no book that's cooler than this. And this book, the reason why it's existed is that the Comics Code of Authority, that was on its way up around 1954, 1955. These horror books knew that their time was limited. So Lee Elias went ahead and just started upping the ante with the gore, and we got a book like this because, you know, they were going to lose the horror books anyway, so may as well just go all out. And this is what one of the books that he did that was like, wow, showstopper. And this again is issue 50. By issue 54, it turned into Black Cat Western. So it went from Black Cat Mystery to Black Cat Western. The horror was out, westerns were in. So books like this here was just nuts. And I remember watching a few books of these go for sale for huge money too. Like this again, quintessential horror book. This is such a great book. And I mean, I could go into great detail of what's going on with that man's skin. My next book here is going to be another Harvey book, a little bit earlier, still Lee Elias. It is Chamber of Chills number 23. This book here is just so cool, and it's creepy and it's cool. It's just what's going on here. I don't know if the creature's trying to kiss her or if he's trying to attack her. Regardless, her reaction shows disgust, and the fact that she's pulling away his flesh to like get off me. It's terrifyingly creepy and terrifyingly cool. It's just another great cover by Lee Elias. And I mean, I bet you if this cover was going to be printed a few years later, he would be having more flesh come off the back of the creature there. I think this is probably one of my favorite covers that are on my list. It's not like my list is my top grails. There's really no number, but this is just in terms of the creepiness factor. This is like the movie Black Christmas, the original one. Just in terms of the gives me the heebie-jeebies. This cover, you know, yeah, it's great. And then next up, I have a book that isn't actually a horror book, but it does come off like a horror book. It's by Harvey Chesler, printed in 1945. It is Punch Comics number 12. This is a classic skull cover. This book actually just went to high, I think it was an 8.5. Just sold for over $200,000 in 2023, in September of 2023. So that is wild that a book like this sold for that much money. And like, I don't entirely know what's going on in the cover. There's a lady who's kind of like passed out at the bottom. There's a man who slouched out of the eyeball there who's presumably dead. And there's a shootout happening around the skull there. And it's, I don't know which one's the cop and which one's the robber. But it's just such a striking cover. And most of the Punch Comics line has a lot of really awesome covers at borderline horror, but they are crime books, and this book is just huge. It's a huge skull cover, which is a big deal for books back in the day, but this is probably the best skull cover, if not one of the best skull covers that exist in comic books, especially in Golden Age comic books. So the next book here is another Avon book from 1952. It is Diary of Horror number 1. Now this book here is A.C. Hollingsworth as well. He did the City of the Living Dead book that we saw earlier. What's really cool about this book is the Christmas colors. I don't understand it. They have the ladies in red dresses. You have the villains in green shirts and pants. It's a strange Christmas feeling cover, but it's obviously also uncomfortable. And I don't entirely understand what's going on here in terms of what's happening in the whole image, but I like it. I like it a lot. I think that it's like the pseudo bondage cover that you have going on here, and you have these various different creeps that are carrying off these women. I don't understand entirely what they all are. All four of them are different. One guy has a skull, the other guy I mean, there's maybe two skull guys. Then you have this weird hunchback in the background, and this ghostly wizard guy with a skull belt in the front. Like, there's a lot going on in this cover, and it intrigues me greatly. And so I just thoroughly enjoy this cover solely based on all of those things. I would love to have a book like this. My next cover here is yet another Johnny Craig cover. It used to be an International Crime Patrol, but now it is just regular Crime Patrol. This is Crime Patrol number 15. This was published in 1950 by EC, and a couple issues later, this turns into the book series called Crypt of Terror. But this book is important and cool because it is not just because it's a Johnny Craig cover, but it's actually the first book that introduces the Crypt Keeper and the Crypt of Terror as well. So the Crypt Keeper from Tales from the Crypt, first introduced into Crime Patrol. That's where you actually, it's weird, I know, right? So the Crypt Keeper comes from this, but is, again, a cool Johnny Craig cover, and I love the double imagery that's going on here. Again, Johnny Craig doesn't show the horror. He does the suspense part to it. He has the action before or after. And here's the before. You have on the television, the man creeping up behind the guy on the phone, and presumably that's the same guy who just came in through the window there. It's all dark outside, and he's creepy up on this guy who is watching the television of apparently this other person who just maybe the same guy who's creepy up on another. So there's this great double entendre. And then you have the phone in the foreground. And unfortunately, the colors make it a little difficult, but that phone line's cut. So you have this idea that the guy could reach for the phone to call for help, but he's not going to be able to call for help. And this guy who's come through the door, he's about to cause some trouble. And yeah, it has this really cool, creepy feel to it when you really start to absorb what's happening. Again, Johnny Craig's just a master of this craft. I absolutely adore everything this man does. Speaking of adoration, this is the only, unfortunately, Frank Frazetta cover we're going to have, but it is a really cool one. This is Famous Funnies 213. This is by Eastern Color in 1954, and this is a Buck Rogers story. But this is just an awesome Frank Frazetta cover. And, you know, he's known for a lot of his awesome artwork with Warren, where he has those amazing paintings. I have an eerie book of his here, and I just love the artwork for it. But this Famous Funnies is just so cool and creepy. You have Buck Rogers. I don't really know much about Buck Rogers, but that, you know, he's a wounded man, and presumably the lady there beside him are you know, wounded. They're looks like they're struggling anyway, and this towering creature's coming in through the shadows, and you know it's a weird creature because the legs coming through and the rest of it's all silhouette, but these eyes and presumably a knife on the left hand there. It's coming through this portal or door. I don't know, but it is suspenseful, and it is painfully Frazetta still. Even, you know, Frazetta is known for a lot of his paintings, but oh my goodness, you can tell his drawings as well. And this cover is just so cool and just an awesome part of science fiction. I absolutely adore it. My next book here is another classic, Tomb of Terror. This is Tomb of Terror number 15. This is the second last Lee Elias book I have on the list here. Again, like this cover is just so cool. This is from 54 as well. So this is one of those books that I just wow. What is going on here? His face is exploding, and the pun at the bottom, the story bursts. Like, this is just so cool. And most of the covers in this series are great. Issue 16 is another very popular book. It is not on my list, so don't expect to see it. It's not that Lee Elias cover. But this is just another classic. You know, series are coming to an end. Let's go all out, and here's Lee doing what he does best. So he does the Melting Man cover with that black hat mystery. Now he has his exploding face on Tomb of Terror. The shrieking girl in the background just losing it. Like, what's even coming off the guy's face? I don't know, but it's awesome. It's just an awesome book. This next one's a little bit muted. This is a weird one for me, I'll admit. This is Tales of Horror number 8 by Toby Press in 1953. And I just think this cover is like Marge Simpson. I just think it's neat. Bright red, just a very bright red cover. And you have this snake wrapped around a building. I don't know architecture. Maybe the Empire State Building, maybe. And it's just hissing at whatever it hisses at. And just wow, it's just such a striking cover. The reds are very, it's such a bright cover for a horror book. And I just, again, I just think it's neat. It's just such a great horror book. I can't say much more about it. I like the book. And that's the thing about this stuff. You just have to like it. No real reason. This next horror book is a classic. It's Startling Terror Tales, number 11. It's the classic skull spider cover. This is just a huge book. It's by Star Publications, 1952. This is an L.B. Cole cover. It's I think the only L.B. Cole cover I have on this list. And yeah, just wow, just wow. That's like it's the classic golden age horror, and it still themes the theme is red, I guess. But yeah, you have this spider creature with these two people caught in their web, the heads floating around there. There's two different versions of this cover that exist. There's the one that I'm showing you here with the blue border, and there's another one that has a black border around the text as well. This is very similar to the book Adventures into Unknown, the same kind of skull creature involved with it. It's Adventures to Unknown 33. Yeah, just there's a lot going on here, and it's just so disturbing. But that skull, like, there's so much detail in terms of like how the skull's head's just turned. There, I could talk ages about how even all the arms and limbs are. It's such a cool cover. I think it's phenomenal. My next book here is another Atlas book, and it is Menace number 5. This is from 1953, and it is a Bill Everett cover. This is the first appearance of Simon Garth being the zombie within Marvel. So it is created by Everett and Stan Lee. And this cover, I mean, it doesn't, to be honest, it doesn't really say much, but it says zombie. It does say that, doesn't it? And so I actually have always just have an infatuation with zombies, in case you haven't noticed by my list already. And I just think that this cover of this creature coming up from the ground, zombie coming up from the ground, is just so cool. And that really is the gist of it. I know that the zombie character in Marvel never really took off, like, at all. I really don't know last time he was in anything. I know probably in some Legion of Monsters stuff that happened. But outside of that, not a popular character by any means. But it's just the first zombie in Marvel, I think, is kind of my draw to it. I think that's just really cool. So yeah, Menace number 5, really cool book. Next up is another EC book. It is The Haunt of Fear number 4. This book used to be Gunfighter, and this is, even though this is number 4, this is actually the first issue of the series. It used to be Gunfighter, then it turned to The Haunt of Fear. I don't know how this stuff works. I do, but whatever. It's Al Fieldstein cover, so that's at the bottom there, and it's just, I like it because A, it's the first issue of the series, and B, it has this monster on monster kind of thing going on. You have this mummy here attacking this hunchback, or at least looking like that, and the hunchback is like, hey, where'd the mummy go? And it's like, I was clearly just standing in the corner, like, how did you not see? I don't know. But I just think the colors, although they're very muted, it still pops because the lighting effect, the coloring of the lighting is really great, and it does a great job showing off the horror that's about to happen. And of course, you have just on the side there the first cover appearances of the Vault Keeper, Crypt Keeper. No, that's not true. Maybe it is. I have to double check that. But regardless, the early versions of Vault Keeper and Crypt Keeper, and the Old Witch, of course, which are the 3 EC mascots, and are yeah, just a really cool looking cover. Next up is my last Elias cover, Lee Elias cover. You'll never guess what it is because it's just not that popular of a book, but it is another Tomb of Terror, and it's not 16, it's number 13. This is it, The Tomb of Terror 13. And I love this cover. And the reason why I love this cover is because it mixes both my love for science fiction and horror together. And holy crap, it is a scary looking cover. It has this, what was out there. It says at the bottom. And we don't know, but oh my goodness, these people are getting disintegrated in space. They're still alive. Their helmets are breaking apart. And yeah, that is the cover itself is like perfect encapsulation of terror in space. And it's the only sci-fi cover of the run, and one of the few sci-fi covers that Elias has ever done. And it just strikes home hard. I love it. And there's two different variations of this cover. There's one this is the only issue where it has the black and white lines on the outline of Tomb of Terror. There's another one that just is like it has these weird stripes. The other one just has a regular outline to it. So there's two different versions of this book out there for whatever reason. But again, this book is just so cool, and like it's like similar to Johnny Craig. It's violent. You don't know. It's not showing the full horror that's happening. It's kind of the just before the actual drama strikes. You're watching the drama like just happen. So great book. This is actually like really top of my list. Like I know we're getting close to the end here where this is number 22 of 25. Then this really is like top of my list. I'm gonna say like top 3. So next up, book number 23 is Strange Tales number 28. The last Atlas book on my list here, in 1954. Harry Anderson cover, and this is just such a creepy cover. You get pulled into the coffin. It says, "Come into my coffin." Like what a grabber, pun intended. But like what a grabber of a title, and just the horror of this guy being pulled into the coffin, the doors closing on him. Like it's just so creepy. It's so creepy. I love it. I love it so much. Keeping the themes of coffins, though, is my second last book, Tales from the Crypt, number 28. An Al Fieldstein cover again, and it's very simple. It is so painfully simple, but just look at it. Just look at it. I can't get over how creepy it is. Man trapped underground. He's buried. It's over. Like the end. He's and just what a creepy feeling. And the artwork itself just is perfect encapsulation of what EC was trying to do with their horror. It's like borderline cartoony, but it's such a serious tone as well, and it just has this kind of zany, in a good and bad way, feel to it. I've always thought this cover was like the best Tales from the Crypt cover, even though it's so painfully simplistic, and I could probably be raked over the coals over this because of it, but I just think it's such a great cover. So yeah, now my last book. This one here is definitely my number 1 book I want to find if I can. It is Vault of Horror number 35 by EC, printed in 1954. It's another Johnny Craig cover, and this is the Christmas issue. So if you've ever seen Tales from the Crypt, the TV series, the first issue, or the first episode, was that Christmas episode. That story comes from this issue. And yeah, again, Johnny Craig, action before, or the horror before and after. Here's the before. Here comes the head chop. And just the swing of the axe. Like you can just feel the momentum coming. And the irony of "Merry Christmas to my wife" said there on the present, and the present itself is a coffin. Like, oh man, what a great feel. And it's in front of the Christmas tree, and it's just boom, boom, boom. It's just a whole variety of emotions, and this cover very vibrant with colors. Obviously, Vault of Horror itself, the logo is very bright and bold, and it's a bright cover for such a violent and somewhat ironic cover. Like it's just, here's my gift, you're dead. Just awesome, and it's easily my favorite Johnny Craig cover, easily my favorite horror cover. Yeah, it's just such a great book. So there's my list. There's my list of my top 25 Golden Age books. The list is not really ranked, save for that Vault of Horror number 35. All these books are subject to change. So, what did you guys think of the list? Did I miss anything? Should I add more? Let me know in the comments below. Please like and subscribe to the video, and of course, I'll see you in the next one.